Hey guys, I'm Amber, this is Amber Online, and today we're doing 5 minutes on Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So Captain America, the Winter Soldier is the third film in Marvel Phase 2, which are the films that began post-Avengers with Iron Man 3, Thor 2, and now Captain America 2. It's by far my favorite of the movies of Phase 2, and perhaps my favorite overall, certainly one of the best solo movies for any of them, and just really, really well constructed, really nicely done, as full of nods to comic book fans, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, full of the subject matter that Captain America deals with best, and full of spectacular character moments and relationship building. So this story relies heavily on, of course, Captain America the Winter Soldier by Brew Baker. That's the title of the film, and they do a great job of adapting that plot, and also on the Secret Warriors plot from Bendis, wherein you find out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has always been a part of Hydra, in this lovely diagram, for instance, because there's Hydra, and there's S.H.I.E.L.D., and so it's sort of like there's Disney, and there's Marvel. No, I don't think that was the commentary they're making, because that didn't exist at that time. But anyways, they do a very, very good job of adapting from the comic books. They do a nice job of inserting lots of different characters from the Captain America universe. You have the Leaper who comes in, and they've sort of given him a purple jacket as an allusion to a Captain America villain. To start off the movie right away, you of course have the Avengers overlap in there, that they're making mention constantly of, like, Tony did this or Bruce did this. Stephen Strange's name gets thrown in at one point. Doctor Strange, the former Sorcerer Supreme. So they have like lots of little nods to the Marvel U. Agent 13 is introduced as his protector agent, and she is of course Cap's major love interest throughout the comic books. So it's nice to see her have an introduction, so that in the third movie perhaps they can have their relationship move forward. It's really, really well done in seamlessly integrating characters and introducing them in a natural manner, and being like, comic book fans, look at all this stuff we got here for you. But it still manages to be an extremely enjoyable film for people who don't know what all these nods are to, because they're just building Cap's world up around him. It deals with subject matter, I think, that is also very important to Captain America, because it focuses a lot on the fact that he's a man out of time. He's still using notebooks to make notes on things. He has this list of films and music that he has to catch up on. He has no contemporaries, particularly in this time period. He mentions to Natasha that it's problematic for him to date anyone because he can't find any common ground. And when he's gone to see his former girlfriend, and she's a contemporary and sage and older and wiser because she's in her 90s, at one point when he's speaking to her, and then the next moment she's having an episode of I suppose it could be an Alzheimer's, it could just be like dementia, because she's extremely old and she doesn't really remember where she is, and she's surprised to see him again. And it's very, very sad and moving for him, and it's sort of this indicator that he has to move on in the world, and he has to move forward, because he can't cling to this past, because there's nothing left there for him. So he finds common ground with Sam, with Falcon, because he's also a soldier, and he also sort of has this sense of being displaced, not from time, but from his position as a soldier in the war. And Cap is facing these same sort of crisis, because he's looking at what S.H.I.E.L.D's doing with the Homeland Security issues. And while this movie focuses a little bit on sort of the state's role in international intervention and how that's negative, I think it's primarily focusing on Homeland Security, and because that's sort of the plot that Hydra was trying to sow, that they're thawing Bucky out, the Winter Soldier out, often enough to sow these seeds of chaos, and make a world in which we are so afraid that we're willing to sacrifice our own freedoms. And because they've created this world, they can put these helicarriers up, and the World Defense Council thinks it's a great idea, and people aren't upset about it because they're like, well, at least we'll be defended. And Cap, I think, as the soldier who fought for freedom, and who fought like in the great battle for freedom in World War II, he represents the perfect antithesis to this idea that we should sacrifice our freedom for comfort and security, because there was nothing about his life that was comfortable and secure. But he did it anyways because it meant more to him to be free, and it meant more to him to be part of a free nation, and it should mean more to us. And even when everyone has turned against them, they're still fighting for freedom, and they're fighting for us in spite of the fact that we don't realize what's good for us. And they sort of do a interesting job of making you sympathetic towards Hydra's position, that you need this security, and they briefly touch on things like, if you had the option to stop a terrorist attack before they could hurt anyone, wouldn't you want it? But of course, because they're Hydra and they're a terrorist organization, they're going to kill millions of people in order to achieve this. So we can see them immediately as a villain, even though we sort of are meant to sympathize a little bit with their cause. And as far as sympathizing with villains, the Winter Soldier is an excellent villain for that, because Bucky, even if you haven't seen the first movie, so they sort of pull in scenes with him and Steve when they were in the past about how he was like a good man and a good friend and a noble person, and he's just so tragic. He's such a tragic figure in this movie that he's hardcore and he's amazing and he's Cap's equal in combat, but he's so tragic a figure that he makes a great villain, because you don't want Steve to hurt him. So you have the big overlooming evil of Hydra, but you also have this man that Cap can fight in the hand-to-hand combat level, because that's really where he does best, because he's not a cosmically powered hero, so he doesn't. It's not as good to have him in cosmically powered fights, but if he can fight hand-to-hand and show off his skills as a super soldier against this experimented on and modified Bucky, you can see awesome fight sequences, and they were awesome in this movie. The choreography was fantastic. It was such a step up from the last film, and from really a lot of film choreography and fights in general. They had like real impact, and it was great. It was very visceral. It was really, really well done in that regard. But you can have this sympathetic figure that you don't want him to beat down, but you still kind of want him to win, and it's great that way. I've totally gone over my 5 minutes, but I'm going to keep talking for a little bit more. And obviously you can stop at any time, because I'm not in charge of your YouTube play button. And the other thing then too was that Natasha was also really great to have in this movie, because not only is she sort of obviously involved with the spy world and involved with Russia, and the Winter Soldier was a Soviet project, but she's also sort of a street-level fighter because she's human. But she's a very, very good fighter, and her techniques were obviously designed to be different than Cap's, and I think that was nicely done, that it wasn't just like she wasn't punching big guys and having them fly across the room. She had much more dancer-like techniques, and she was very, very elegantly done, and also her characterization was fantastic, because so far she's been sort of like a throwaway sex character, with only a few moments in Avengers, and in this movie you got a lot more to see how sort of damaged she was, how really sad she was, that she sort of led this life and she doesn't know who she is anymore, and she doesn't have any close friends. And this idea of trust was of course a prevalent theme through the movie, not just among the characters, not just among this unit that was created with like Maria and Nick and Cap and Natasha and Sam, but also in the overarching the hero and villain plot of trust, and the world trust on our leaders and on those who are supposed to keep us most secure. So overall, really fantastic film, great for comic book fans, great for cinema fans. It was fun on action. It was very heavy on the action. It was a little lighter on the message, but I think it was still there, and I think it's an important message that is often missed in comics like Thor and like Iron Man. Well, Iron Man has, of course, all the weapon stuff, but for Captain America in particular, it's really become that he is the best critique of the American dream versus America as it is. And I think this is a great film for that, because it shows the American dream versus America as it is, as well as showing a great story for Cap himself. And the acting in this film is through the roof. There was no actor I looked at that was like especially weak. There was no one who sort of brought the film down, and I just had a super enjoyable time watching it. So that was my slightly longer than 5-minute discussion of Captain America the Winter Soldier. Phenomenal film. Ooh, I didn't even talk about Zola. I should have talked about Zola, because he was in a computer instead of like in the mech, and his head, and like, what does it mean that we're recording Nazi soldiers? But anyways, check out the bonus video if you want to know what the Easter egg meant, because I'm going to explain that for you as well. Yeah, nerd power.